Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back in another episode of Way of the Underhive. This series is dedicated to helping brand new players to Necromunda build their starting rosters and learn more about the game mechanics of their favorite gangs. And on this episode, we will discuss playing a Psy-Syndica Outcast Gang. We'll be discussing their strengths, their weaknesses, their fighters, their playstyle, and provide critical information that you can use in your campaign. And at the same time, we will show you a 1400 point list that you can use in your very first Necromunda Ashwaste campaign with playing a Psy-Syndica Outcast Gang. So now that we are venturing now into the wilds of the Ashwaste outside of Hive Primus, playing an Outcast Gang is actually more viable now than ever before. The reason why is because now you could use Delegation gangs out in the Ashwaste, and a lot of the weaknesses that Delegation gangs had in the Underhive have pretty much been mitigated by the use of vehicles and heavier weapons available to gangs out in the Ashwastes. So in this video, we're going to show you exactly how to go about using the Psy-Syndica Outcasts in your Ashwaste campaign. And with that being said, let's get this video on a roll. Alright, so let's talk about the strengths of playing a Delegation Outcast Gang. So potentially it's one of the most powerful starting gangs that you can actually have in a campaign, and the reason why is because of the fighters that make up your delegations. Regardless if you're playing criminal, merchant, or noble house delegations, they usually all start off with excellent equipment and skills right from the start. In some cases they have some really good stats, and they have some very powerful special rules that can make them really advantageous and very competitive in an Ashwaste campaign. At the same time, you can also take advantage of weird disciplines now because the Book of the Outcast release those weird disciplines. You can even customize your fighters even further. And in addition to adding vehicles with heavier weapon options and different boons and weapon gears from those vehicles, could also give your Delegation gang a huge advantage out in the Ashways of Necromunda. And these are some of the advantages and strengths of actually playing a Delegation Outcast gang. Alright, so perhaps the biggest weakness of actually playing a Delegation gang that's an Outcast gang is that you cannot take any alliances whatsoever. If you decide to use the Delegation as the core of your gang, no alliances are available to you. So for example, if you're a Merchant Guild Delegation gang, you can't take Criminal Alliances or Noble House Alliances, and vice versa for all the other ones as well. So that's one of the biggest weaknesses of playing a Delegation gang. If you really like using alliances to help your gang out, this might not be the one for you. However though, like I said before in the strengths, it does give you a leg up in the actual beginning of a campaign because you have better fighters, better equipment, and better skills. Now, one of the weaknesses of this game, of course, is that if you decide to play WYSIWYG, which is an acronym for what you see is what you get type of gangs, this can be quite pricey in my opinion. And the reason why is because, for example, if you were to play a Nauticon Siphoning Delegation, for example, as the core of your gang, and you want to buy the Forge World miniatures in order to fill that gang, those Forge World miniatures can be quite expensive. So because of that, I would suggest looking for cheaper alternatives or convert your own in most cases. A lot of these delegations have not been manufactured yet, so you could possibly do that, but that's just something you might want to take into account. Me, of course, I would never actually do that. I would just convert my own or find alternate ways to get cheaper miniatures, and that's the thing I would keep in mind when I would be playing a Delegation gang. At the same time, these gangs are also very expensive to field in terms of credits. These delegations, like I said, have a lot of skills, a lot of weapons, better stats, and you're going to pay for those. For example, I think the cheapest of the delegations starts off at like 540 credits, I believe. So because of that, it's going to be very, very expensive for you to fill these fighters, but that's the way it goes. And lastly, probably the biggest weakness of actually playing an Outcast Delegation gang is that you do have to be aware of the balanced bandwagon. A lot of balanced bandwagon types will scream overpowered or game breaking or unfair and so on and so forth. But of course, once again, just ignore those immaturity of those players, drink the salt of their tears, and just use that to power yourself in destroying your enemies. So these are some of the strengths and weaknesses involved in playing a Delegation gang. Alright, so when it comes to Delegation gangs, once again, you get to pick from merchant guilds, criminal syndicates, or noble houses, and use those delegations you get from those alliances to form the core of your gang. Leaders also get archetypes and affiliations depending on what delegation you choose. Also, champions also get archetypes as well, so that allows for a lot of customization for your different members of your delegations depending on the affiliations and the archetypes that you choose. Now, once again, remember, archetypes depend on what kind of primary and secondary skills your champions and your leaders receive, while affiliations usually determine what kind of weapons and equipment you can get from the starting list, if not from the trading post as well. At the same time, the nice thing about these delegations is that the members of those delegations gain experience and they can purchase weapons and equipment over time, just like any other gang, so that part is really cool. And once again, I have to make sure I stress this a lot. If you decide to take a Delegation Outcast gang, you cannot make any alliances whatsoever in the future, so just be aware when that actually happens and keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to your actual criminal delegations that you can actually play in your Outcast gang, there's pretty much 5 that you can choose from, all right? Now, granted, there are 6 criminal syndicate factions within the Book of Judgment. However, the Narcolords are not present in this delegation, and the reason why is because their delegation just consists of D3 plus 2 Hive scum that you could just hire, so that's the reason why they don't have that faction available to you. However, for your delegations, though, you can play a Smuggler Shore Party from the Cold Traders, a Factoria Work Gang from the Rogue Factoria faction. You can play a Master Charlatan from the Imperial Imposters faction. You can play a Rebel Lord from the Fallen Houses faction, or a Mind-Locked Wyrd from the Psy-Syndica faction as well. So these are the 5 delegations that you can actually choose from in order to build your gangs. Now, once again, I must remind you, of course, if you decide to do a delegation gang from one of the criminal syndicates, you will not be able to allow to take allies in your list, so keep that in mind. However, there are some advantages. Any weapons, equipment that these gangs actually start off with, their delegations, you can purchase those for all of your Outcast champions and Outcast Hive scum as well. So that's where the kind of the trade-off comes in. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about how you can use your criminal delegation specifically in the next slide. Alright, so let's talk about the Psy-Syndica Delegation. Now, it's going to cost you 125 credits because that is the credits you'll be using for your leader stat in an Outcast gang. Now, originally, the Psy-Syndica was the absolute worst criminal syndicate that you could ally with in Necromunda. They had so many bad things going on with that alliance, with taking out your own fighters and killing after your own guys, plus the Mind-Locked Wyrd was also pretty limited for the things that they could do. However, with the Book of the Outcast being released, it changed all that on a couple of things. First of all, your Mind-Locked Wyrd being used as the leader of your gang now can be potentially one of the deadliest fighters that can be defeated in a gang. Now, think of a psychic gunslinger for the build of your character, and you will not be steered wrong on this one. I also like to use what I like to call the Psy-Syndica Hive Mind build as well. And the reason why that is the case is because by using the Mind-Locked Wyrd, you'll be taking more supporting role in your gang, but you'll have that character take place using telepathy as their specialty. Telepathy's unbreakable will is key to that particular build, because what that power does, it allows any friendly fighter within 9 inches to use the Mind-Locked Wyrd's cool or willpower characteristic when making a cool or willpower test. And the Mind-Locked Wyrd has a cool of 6+ and a willpower 4+, and that means with a willpower 4+, you'll be triggering your psychic powers 91% of the times. And because of that, your Outcast champions can also become Wyrds, which means they can also sub their 8+ willpower for that 4+ willpower, triggering their psychic powers 91% of the time as well. So because of that, you can easily dominate the psychic phase with your psychic powers and either build a gunslinging psychic or a more supportive high mind psychic, depending on which one you want to use. So now that we're done talking about the Psy-Syndica as a whole, let's talk about your Mind-Locked Wyrd. Alright, so let's talk about your Mind-Locked Wyrd real quick. For their stats, they have a 4-inch movement characteristic, a 5+ weapon skill, which isn't all that great, but they do have a 3+ ballista skill, which is fantastic. They have 3 strength, 3 toughness, they have 2 wounds, 4+ initiative, they have 1 attack, as well as 8 leadership, 6 cool, 4+ willpower, which is the main trait of this character, as well as a 9+ intelligence. Now, when it comes to your Mind-Locked Wyrd, this fighter is going to be the leader of your gang on this one. And when it comes to you choosing your archetype, I suggest you go with the Gunslinger archetype. That's right, the Gunslinger archetype, and you're going to make a Psychic Gunslinger build for your leader of your gang. Now, you might be wondering, well, Commander Cheesecake, why not make it a Wyrd archetype? The reason why is because you already have that covered. You got 3 Wyrd powers you're going to be able to put on this fighter already. What you need to do is get this fighter out to fight and be able to fight in battles as well. So the Mind-Locked Wyrd already comes with mesh armor for a 5 armor save, which is kind of nice, but they have no weapons. Now, that's not a bad thing, because for a Mind-Locked Wyrd as a leader of an Outcast gang, the only limitations they have for weapons is the rarity value, and then go all the way up to rarity 9 on this one. For my choice, I like the Stub Plasma Combi-Pistol myself with Dumdum rounds at 45 credits. The reason why is because if you put Stubgun rounds in your Stubgun, you got 4 strength attacks. You also got the Plasma Pistol. It only costs 45 credits, and if you get 2 of these things, you'll be pretty deadly as well. Now, you do have the Fearsome skill, which means that your opponents will need to take a willpower test to charge you in close combat, so that could probably help you out the most, and plus you can shoot at them if they manage to hesitate. You do get the non-sanctioned Psychic Special rule, and you get 3 psychic powers of your choice. Now, for your Gunslinger archetype, I either suggest you either get Gunfighter, so that way you can use both of your Stub Plasma Combi-Pistols, or get Fast Shot. Gunfighter gives you more accuracy to fire both your pistol, while Fast Shot lets you actually shoot multiple times. In fact, you can potentially shoot up to 8 times, 4 times your Plasma Pistol and 4 times your Stubgun. Eventually, though, I suggest you get both of those. Now, when it comes to your psychic power, I believe you should get the Biomancy discipline for the most. At the same time, the reason why you want to get that Biomancy discipline is for 3 different powers. For more of like a parkour type build where this guy will be moving around, you want to get Arachnosis, which gives you the ability to have Clamber, Catfall, and Mighty Leap skills so that way you can climb up on a 3-dimensional battlefield. You have a general purpose power called the Quickening, which adds 3 to your movement, make you movement 7, and also adds +1 to your weapon skill and ballistic skill, giving you weapon skill 4 and ballistic skill 2+, which is always a good thing. You have the more support option where you could use the Stop Bleeding power, which means you can pick a friendly fire within 18 inches and remove all their flesh wounds. And you also have a defensive build, which is called Iron Arm, which gives you a 5 ward save against close combat attacks, and armor piercing does not modify that whatsoever. So this is what I like to call the Psychic Gunslinger build. But there's also a second build you could also use, what I like to call the Psy-Syndica Hive Mind build. Alright, so let's talk about the Psy-Syndica Hive Mind build for this one. And of course, like I said before, you still want to stick with the Gunslinger archetype so that way you get shooting attacks as well. Now for this one, of course, for this character, you're going to do a couple things. First of all, they come with mesh armor, but you're going to equip them with a plasma gun with a monosight, so that way they can shoot at distances as well. And at the same time, you want to give them a chain weapon of some sort as to be one of their go-tos. You can choose a chain sword so that way they can get parry, or you can go with a chain axe, which also has parry but also better stats. It's entirely up to you how you want to do. Now, once again, this fighter will also come with a Fearsome skill automatically, as well as a non-sanctioned Psyker skill as well, and at the same time they get 3 second powers of your choice as well. Now for this group here, the Gunslinger archetype, I will either use fast shots so that way they can spam multiple shots with a plasma gun, or trick shot for longer distances. Probably fast shot will probably do you more good because you can do multiple shots if you need to, but trick shot for long ranges is also not too bad either, especially when you combine it with your monosight and your plasma gun. Now for your psychic powers on this one, it's going to be a little bit different because instead of using your Biomancy psychic abilities, what you're going to use instead is a telepath discipline. And the reason why is because you want that unbreakable will power for that hive mind. Remember, you'll be able to give fighters within 9 inches of you the 4 willpower. So you could put psyker powers on your champions and they can trigger those powers 91% of the time, which is absolutely fantastic. I also suggest you also put mind control on this fighter so that way they can control people and actually have them shoot at their allies. At the same time, also give them the Terrify ability so that way you can cause them to take nerve tests and to flee as well. And this is what I like to call the second Gunslinger Hive Mind support build. And so because you have 2 different builds for your leader, we'll also have 2 different builds for your gangs as well. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the Underhive Outcast Champion real quick. For these gangs, these guys cost 60 credits apiece, and for their stats, they have 5-inch movement, 3+ weapon skill, 4+ ballistic skill. They have 3 strength, 3 toughness. They also have 2 wounds, they have 4 initiative, 1 attack. They have 6 leadership, 7 cool, 8 willpower, as well as 8 intelligence. So let's go on and talk about these guys real quick. So when it comes to the Underhive Outcast Champions, they're very versatile, and the reason why is because their stats are pretty much mediocre. Now that's both a good and a bad thing. While it might be bad because they can't excel at any one given thing, whether it's shooting or close combat, it does allow them to be able to equip a large variety of weapons and fulfill any role that you need them to fulfill within your gang as well. Now when it also comes to your guys' Underhive Outcast Champions, archetypes of course are very, very important, but the problem with these guys though is that their archetypes are very limited for their skills in my opinion. For example, they have 5 different archetypes they can choose from, but they only have 1 primary skill and each of those archetypes followed by 2 secondaries. So for example, if you were to take the Brawler archetype, Brawn would be your primary with Ferocity and Leadership as your secondaries. If you were a Gunslinger archetype, Shooting would be your primary with Agility as well as Leadership as your secondaries. For a Survivor archetype, Ferocity would be your primary, followed by Combat and Leadership for your secondaries. For Mastermind, Cunning would be your primary, with Leadership and Savant as your secondaries. And of course, for Wyrd archetypes, your Psychic Disciplines would be your primary, followed by Cunning and Leadership as your secondaries. Unfortunately for the champion, there are no archetypes where combat is a primary, so that is kind of limiting on what you can do. So you won't be getting any skills really to increase your combat abilities, but better weapons and equipment choices could probably help out with that as well. Now when it comes to their equipment and weapons, they can purchase pretty much anything they want to off the trading post so long as it's within the rarity value of 8 on the trading post. So they are kind of limited in some of their choices, but the reason why that is the case is because you can take 1 champion for every 3 Hive Scum in your gang. So for example, if you have 6 Hive Scum in your gang, you can take 2 champions. If you got 9 Hive Scum, you can get 3 champions, and etc. So that's basically where the trade-off kind of comes in. And then finally, of course, we have our Underhive Outcast Hive Scum, which is your typical Ganger and Juvie level fighter for your gang. These guys cost 30 credits apiece. For their stats, they have 5-inch movement, 4+ weapon skill, and ballistic skill. 3 strength and toughness. They have 1 wound, 4+ for initiative, 1 attack. They have 8+ for leadership, cool, willpower, and intelligence. And for their skill access, when they become a specialist, their primary is cunning, with ferocity as their secondary. Now, Underhive scum, Outcast scum, they're very mediocre, okay? But because of that, they're also very cheap to field. And even though they have very mediocre stats, they count as both gangers and GB level fighters for your gang, and because their stats are still so mediocre, they can fulfill many different roles in your gang. You can equip them as shooters, close combat, you can use them as support, you can use them as suicide bombers, especially now that you can also put them on waster dirt bikes. They make great pursuers on waster dirt bikes, for example. So there's a variety of things you can do with these guys to fulfill pretty much any role that you want to. And plus, if you decide to make it into a delegation gang, you can also take better weapons equipment from the delegation lists as well. So that's another cool thing about Outcast Hive Scum as well. Now, unfortunately, you cannot start your campaign with an Outcast specialist, so that part is kind of sad. Almost every single gang can have a specialist except for Outcast, so that part is kind of sad, but that's the kind of the trade-off. Yes, you can't get those specialists, but right at the start, but you have so many guys you can choose from, and plus your delegations can fulfill those roles anyways, so it's not that big of an issue. So that makes up your guys' Outcast Hive Scum. Alright, so let's start with the very first of the list. This one's called the Gun Mage Psy-Syndica Outcast Gang. It's going to cost you 1,400 credits. So let's do the rundown on this one. So first of all, your mind-locked Wyrd's going to cost 205 credits. This fighter's got the Gunfighter Archetype as well as Mesh Armor. They have a Combi-Pistol with a Stubgun Plasma Pistol combo with Dumdum rounds, and they also carry a Chain Axe. They got the Fearsome skill as well as Fast Shot skill, and they also practice the Biomancy discipline with Arachnosis, the Quickening, as well as Iron Arm. After that, you got Champion number 1. Outcast Champion number 1 is going to cost you 230 credits. This fighter's armed with the Gunslinger Archetype. They got Mesh Armor as well as a Plasma Gun with a Telescopic sight. They got a Chainsword, a Stubgun, as well as a Fast Shot ability. And Outcast Champion number 2 is going to cost you 175 credits. This fighter comes with Mastermind Archetype. They're also armed with Mesh Armor. They have a long rifle with infrared sight on it, as well as a Chainsword, Stubgun, as well as Overwatch, so that way they can interrupt enemy activations. After that, you will have 3 Outcast Scum, Scum number 1, 2, and 3. All 3 of these guys will cost you 80 credits apiece, and are all equipped exactly the same with Auto Pistol, Chain Swords, as well as Smoke Grenades. You also have 3 Scum Racers, Scum Racer number 1, 2, as well as number 3. Scum Racer number 1 and 2 cost 220 credits, and they're also equipped exactly the same with custom light vehicles, mining lasers, transport beds to carry additional fighters, as well as tire claws for +1 handling. Scum Racer number 3 is going to cost you 110 credits. This fighter's got a custom light vehicle, a grenade launcher with frag and crack grenades, a transport bed to transport fighters, and tire claws. So let's talk about the gang's overview real quick. This gang list is a highly aggressive list requiring players to use speed, intersecting fields of fire, and brutal close quarters battle to defeat your foes. This build is very mobile, using light custom vehicles and moving into position. At the same time, these light vehicles also have some significant firepower to assist you. Your line-locked Wyrd takes more of an active role in this list, committing themselves to combat and using Biomancy to enhance their abilities, and this gang consists of 3 fire teams, 1 assault fire team and 2 support fire teams. Your assault fire team consists of your mind-locked Wyrd, Outcast Scum number 1, and Scum Racer number 3. This assault team fire team moves forward and flanks the enemy from exposed front. The Scum Racer uses their grenade launcher to lay down some suppressive fire with their frag grenades. Meanwhile, Outcast Scum number 1 lobs smoke grenades as you travel, creating a smoke screen to protect your advance. Finally, when you are engaged, the mind-locked Wyrd and Outcast Scum number 1 dismount, operating as a pair to take down your enemies. Use the Quickening to give yourself a much-needed boost to your stats before shooting and engaging your enemies in combat. Now, the Wyrd Fast Shot ability gives them 4 shooting attacks, 2 with their Stubgun and 2 with their Plasma Gun. When you level up, get the Gunfighter skill and equip another combo pistol of your choice. While the Chain Axe does give you +1 hit in close combat, use only as a defensive measure, never charge into combat, but you have the ability to counterattack as well as destroy your enemies at the same time. Use Arachnosis in order to climb or move over obstacles, and when you have a chance, use Iron Armor to protect yourself in close combat. Now, for your support fire team number 1, that consists of Outcast Champion number 1, Outcast Scum number 2, and Scum Racer number 1. This fire team job is to move across the enemy position and engage them at medium to close range. The Outcast Scum number 2 lobs smoke grenades to cover your advance. Meanwhile, Scum Racer number 1 and Outcast Champion number 1 work in tandem, engaging enemies' vehicles and high-value targets. Now, Scum Racer number 1 uses their mining laser to target enemy vehicles or high-value targets, while your champion uses Fast Shot to spam rapid fire with your Plasma Gun to wipe out the opposition. Use the Telescopic sight for longer range shots, but also upgrade to a mono sight as soon as possible. And finally, when enough enemies have been shot, assault through. Your champion and Outcast Scum are both armored chain swords, giving you +1 to hit in close combat, charge through, and kill all who survive. And then lastly, you have Fire Support Team number 2. This consists of your Outcast Champion number 2, Outcast Scum number 3, and Scum Racer number 2. This Fire Team job is to move across enemy position and engage them at medium and long range as well. The Outcast Scum number 3 allows smoke grenades to cover your advance. Meanwhile, Scum Racer number 2 and Outcast Champion number 2 work in tandem, engaging enemies' vehicles and high-value fighters. Scum Racer number 2 uses their mining laser to target enemy vehicles or high-value targets, and the Outcast Champion has Overwatch, so spam firing your long rifle to interrupt the opposition will really help. In situations where visibility is low or there's blackout conditions or smoke, the long rifle is equipped with the infrared sight, negating those penalties. Finally, when enough enemies have been shot assault through, your champion and Outcast Scum are both armed with chainswords, giving you +1 to hit in close combat, charge through, and kill anyone who's left alive and anybody who tries to fight against you. And this is what I like to call the Gun Mage Psy-Syndica Outcast Gang. Alright, so the second build that we have is what I like to call the Hive Mind Psy-Syndica Outcast Gang. This one's going to cost you 1,395 credits. First of all, you're going to have a Mind-Locked Wyrd at 290 credits. They're going to have the Gunslinger Archetype, Mesh Armor, as well as a Plasma Gun with Monosight. They're also going to have a Chainsword, the Fearsome skill, the Fast Shot skill, Telepathy Discipline with Unbreakable Will, Mind Control, and Terrify. After that, you'll have 2 Outcast Champions, number 1 and 2. They're both equipped exactly the same at 160 credits apiece. Both are Wyrd archetypes with armored undersuits and hazard suits. Both have Combi-Pistol with Stubgun with plasma pistols. Both have chainswords, and they do both have the telekinesis ability with force field on that one. After that, you have Outcast Scum number 1, 2, and 3. All 3 of these guys equipped exactly the same at 130 credits apiece. All 3 have armored undersuits, mesh armor, shotgun with solid and scatter shot. They also have chain swords and stub guns. And then finally, you have a Scum Racer at 400 credits who's driving a rock grinder truck with twin-linked autocannons, a nitro booster for +1 movement, smoke vents for -1 to hit against you and shooting for your enemies, and tire claws for +1 handling. Now, for the gang list overview on this one, this gang takes full advantage of my Psy-Syndica Hive Mind build, and this is due to the Unbreakable Willpower ability. Any friendly fighter than 9 inches can use the Wyrd's Cool or Willpower characteristic when making a Cool or Willpower test. And with a Willpower of 4+, your powers will trigger 91% of the times. And because your Outcast Champions can also become Wyrds, that means they can also sub their 8+ Willpower for 4+ as well, triggering their Psychic powers 91% of the time, and so on. Except this time you'll be spamming your 2 Psychers using the Force Field power. These 2 power guys, when they let loose with Force Field, means everyone within a 3-inch area will get +2 added to their saves. So that's really, really brutal. Now, at the same time, the Telekinesis special ability is called Fist of Fury, which means you get +1 strength and +1 attacks, but only if you fight unarmed. Personally, I think that's a weak sauce rule, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let my players be able to use that for any of their melee attacks. +1 strength and +1 attack for that one. Now, obviously, this is not an official rule. I would ask your arbitrator first if they're okay with this. If your arbitrator says no, though, be perfectly understandable. It's their campaign. They're the final say on how it goes on their campaign. But for me, though, I think overpowered is cool in some cases, so I'm going to let my friends be able to do that. Now, needless to say, this gang hits like a sledgehammer, and it consists of 2 fire teams. It's got an assault fire team as well as a supporting fire team. For your support fire team consists of your Scum Racer and their rock grinder truck. Now, this guy is all by themselves, but this team performs 2 roles. They provide long-range heavy weapons fire with their twin-linked autocannons and transporting the assault fire team into position. The rock grinder has twin-linked autocannons giving you rapid fire, strength 7 attacks with -2 AP, 2 damage, and knockback. At the same time, you can reroll your rapid fire dice due to the twin-linked special rule attached to it. Now, you do have +1 movement, making you movement 6 due to the nitro burners. Your enemies also suffer a -1 to hit against you due to the smoke vents, and you also have a handling of 7+ due to the tire claws. My recommendation is to upgrade the rock grinder with a rock grinder ram as soon as possible to make this vehicle even more aggressive, because this thing charges forward as quick as it can, shooting and smashing until your assault team gets into position. Now, your assault team will consist of your entire gang, your Mind-Locked Wyrd, your 2 Outcast Champions, all 3 of your Outcast Scum as well. Now, all of your fighters will stay close together at least 3 inches next to each other, so that way they can take advantage of the Force Field ability. The Mind-Locked Wyrd uses their group activation to activate Outcast Champions 1 and 2, and the Wyrd uses their Unbreakable Willpower, transferring their 4+ Willpower to the Champions. The Champions in turn then spam Force Field, giving +2 saves to everyone within 3 inches. That means your Mind-Locked Wyrd and Champions will have armor save of 3+. In addition, your Champions will also have a 3+ toughness for gas attacks, immediate blaze, as well as rad phage traits on enemy weapons. Now, your Mind-Locked Wyrd can then provide close-in fire with their plasma gun, spamming fast shot to get 2 rapid fire, strength 5, -1 AP, 2 damage shot. Your Outcast Scum number 1 through 3 will also have a 2-up armor save as well because of their armors that they have on them, and they can also provide close shooting with their shotguns, making them very, very deadly. So when you engage in close combat, your entire gang does have Chainswords, giving them +1 to hit in close combat. They're going to absolutely tear it up. The only problem these guys have is that they're actually a pretty small elite unit, so whatever losses you take will hurt you, but with that armor bonus, should not really be a problem. And that's what I like to call the Hive Mind Psy-Syndica Gang. So in the end, playing a criminal syndicate delegation outcast gang is one of the greatest ways to add some diversity to a campaign and to Necromunda overall. You have lots of different powerful options with fighters, skills, equipment, as well as vehicles, and even more so now that you have those vehicles, and you can make some really interesting customized gangs. So it'd be actually kind of cool to see exactly what ends up happening now in the Ashways with all this diversity of criminal syndicates going on. So in my opinion, pick your favorite crime syndicate, get that outcast status, get up your gang, and go directly out to the Ashways and try to bring glory and wealth to yourself as a criminal syndicate outcast. The only thing I warn about, of course, is just watch out for the balanced bandwagon, because they're going to find some reason to gripe and always find a way to try to be salty. So that's good for you guys. As always, please remember to like, comment, and or subscribe. You guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.